Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and in this interview, I talked to Kyle Claver, and he has a pretty interesting case study where he worked on a e-commerce site. It was a drop shipping site, and I guess technically it still is, but the owner had a desire to add some affiliate income to the mix. So they started working with Kyle, and he's going to unpack this, let us know some of the results and his strategies to actually start earning roughly, I think if my math is right, about $2,300 per month from both Amazon affiliate and some display ads as well. Kyle, how are you doing today?
Hey, Doug, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Fantastic, actually.
Awesome. And I know we're in a bit of different time zones here, so it's pretty early morning for you. I've had a couple beers myself the evening, so that's what we did last time. Now, for the people that didn't catch the other interview, I have to tell them, go check it out. You have a great story. I love your enthusiasm, and that's why I asked you to be back on the show. But for the people that didn't hear it, who are you and kind of what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Kyle, as you mentioned, and I'm full-time SEO basically. So I have a mix between, I have a small boutique agency and a couple of my own affiliate websites. So I do basically affiliate SEO and then some client SEO as well. The majority of my client work comes from link building. And then there's a small portion of it, which is like full SEO, doing content, blog content, the link building, technical audits, all that kind of stuff. So full SEO.
How long have
And
you?
the previous podcast was about the age domain that I bought from Otis, and then within whatever it was 6-7 months got it to 2,200 a month in earnings. So that was the last podcast. I recommend you check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, and those 2,200 per month. And how many months did you say?
It was like 9 or something like this. It was pretty quick. Yeah.
Great. And shout out to Otis, a fine sponsor of the show, odys.global. And they didn't even pay for this specific spot, but they're great folks and good results. So people check that out.
Yeah, great results.
How long have you been doing SEO and that sort of thing?
So I've been doing SEO now like for the past 3 years, I would say. But then of course, like when you start, you're kind of just dabbling, and then, but more seriously, I would say for the past 2 years, like pretty like serious SEO for the past 2 years. And then I was fortunate enough, like as you mentioned, I'm living in Thailand right now. So I moved back to Chiang Mai about 2 years ago and got on with I got some really good experience working with some really high level SEOs there. So that's where my real initiation into SEO started, was working with those guys and picking up some good golden nuggets.
Very cool. Okay, well, let's get into this specific case study. And how did you land this client? Where did they find you, or where did you find them?
Yeah, so this is my first client ever, actually, maybe like 4 years ago when I first started. And basically, so when I first got into dropshipping, it was like through one of the Facebook groups, and there was this guy, shout out to Ian Bond, you can check him out. He runs Professional Website Investors. So I was in the Facebook groups for dropshipping, and I was like just starting my journey, my digital marketing journey, basically really eager. And I kept seeing this name, popping up in all the Facebook groups. So whenever somebody, and this was more specific to Shopify and dropshipping, high ticket dropshipping, we're talking products that are $500 plus. So every time somebody was trying to sell a website or looking to buy a website, sell a website, anything related to that, everybody was mentioning his name in the comments for the Facebook groups. And I was like, man, this guy sounds like a boss. Who is this guy? And of course I was just starting out, right? And I was just eager for any kind of knowledge I could get. And so I ended up like messaging him and just being like, hey, I'd love to just chat with you. I'd love to learn more, because from the beginning of my digital marketing career, I was always most interested in the investment side, the business side of things, flipping websites, building websites that kind of on a higher level. That's what I was always more interested in. So I messaged him and I said, hey, like, I'd love to have a chat with you, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I was just on a podcast. You can check it out. So I listened to his podcast, learned a lot from the business and management side of things. And then I ended up having a call with him, and then we kept in touch, and we ended up becoming like good friends. So I still talk to him all the time now. I consider him more of a friend than a client, So it's one of those great clients. But I was early in my career, I guess, and he had a few websites. Now his approach is more so like he's more of an investor, right? He's looking to outsource more of the work or put people in place, systems and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't do so much of the physical work himself. So he had a few Shopify websites, and I was just starting out, and I just said like, "Hey man, I'll help you out with these." And he's like, I'll pay you." And no, I don't want to get paid. I wanted more experience. Basically, I knew that it was worth the relationship. So that's how I started out with him. I started doing some work with him, working for free. And that's when I was like dabbling with SEO before, and ended up getting some really good results. So then that transitioned, obviously, like once I started getting some good results, building that relationship, then we started working out like a payment, of course. Then I just took him on as a client. And then we didn't work together for a period, like it was about a year, but then again, we got back into touch, and he messaged me again, whatever it was, a year and a half ago. And he wanted me to look at one of his websites. And I said, yeah, sure. So then we just picked up on another one of his websites. So I've worked on a few of his websites now, and it's always Shopify.
And master networker, that's fantastic. I usually don't want to work with people for free. I have had people approach me, and it's kind of a weird area. I value if someone's doing something good, I want to pay them. But if you frame it right, like you did, Kyle, then you may be able to land it, work with a good person, and you have this relationship. They can introduce you to people. Maybe you work on a project together like you have here. So I take it this is the site that he wanted you to have a look at. Maybe you have some ideas, or
this is actually the third one. This is the third one, actually. So the other I've done, this is the third, because like I said, he's go check him out, Google Professional Website Investors. He's done a few websites, quite a handful actually bought and sold and all this stuff. And it's all Shopify that he's focused on. But this is the third or fourth website. So the first one, that's another one. You could even do a case study of that. We won't get into it, but same thing. It was a little bit of a different approach on that one. We had to modify this one, but same thing. The organic traffic and earnings from organic through dropshipping really, increased like 5-fold, 10-fold. So we got some really good results there. And in this one, it's just started off with just like he wanted some additional content to help support some of his bigger brands. And then that was like what started it. And then we just like kind of worked our way up from there. So it wasn't like full SEO from the beginning of this one. He just messaged me, said, "Hey, can you just do some content for me?" Okay, yeah, sure. And then it just transitioned to full SEO.
Okay, gotcha. So let me frame this in a different way. When I would do my old corporate job, and we would show up at a client site, a lot of times we would look at the current state to give us an idea of what we needed to do to reach the goals for the client. So you had this sort of assignment, this maybe kind of vague, but maybe kind of simple, to add more content. So how did you assess what to do? And I mean, at this point, the site's earning a significant amount from the work that you've done. So I'm curious how, you started with just the content assignment, and then it grew into this bigger thing, and it's a great result to show for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, like when you're starting off, now I'm going to say this, like everything that I'm saying is just based on I'm not saying there's one way to do things. I just want to preface this before getting into it. Everything is based on my own experience and what has worked and what has not worked for me. So take it with a grain of salt, everything that I say, right? I'm just basing it off of my own experience after working on these websites, just to preface that. So when starting up with Shopify, I guess, and particularly like a dropshipping or an e-commerce site, I mean, the main focus is not going to be on the blog. It's going to be on the product pages and then the collection pages, right? Making sure that all your content is unique. You don't have any copy and pasted, duplicate content, all that kind of stuff. Now, this can be a little bit like intimidating. Like I have another client that has like 40,000 products, right? It could be a little bit intimidating. So at least starting with, maybe don't do all 40,000 to start, but at least like the top products, then you can work your way kind of across them over time, basically. So when I approached this website, it was kind of the same thing, but I already knew that he had most of his product descriptions were unique. The keyword research was already done to be targeting the correct keywords for the products. And then same thing with collections, because it's different intent, different keywords for the most part. He already had his collection pages already set up with they're already keyword targeted, all that kind of stuff. So I knew that was already done correctly. There was content on the collections as well. So and then the technical audit for the most part, like everything like looked good, the click depth, the site structure, ran it through Ahrefs and all that stuff. That's like number one. So that was all good. So the foundation was, we're already starting from a pretty good place. And that was like the first approach. And then after I knew that he wanted just basically blog content, because he had specific brands that he wanted to kind of just basically promote a little bit more, give them a little bit more content around them. So that was how we started, just writing content at that. So the strategy from the beginning wasn't so in depth. He just asked me, hey, can we get this content? And that's what we did. So then that's where we started. But yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. And I think that's a good example of approaching things and doing like sort of the minimum. And once you get to a spot, maybe where you publish a little more content, you went through all the technical SEO audits, you have a different perspective at that point, and maybe you have other ideas of what to do at that point, I guess. So
Yeah.
when you first started working on the site, how long ago was that, by the way?
It was about 18 months ago, before we really started getting involved. There was like some piecemeal, like 1 article, 2 article, but that was, like over a longer span. It wasn't like full work, just like 1 or 2 articles. But for the most part, like the actual work started, I would say the bulk of it 18 months ago.
Okay. And you let me know in some of the information you sent ahead of time, the domain rating from Ahrefs was 7 when you first started working on it 18 months ago. And now currently, as of actually today is when you pulled the report that you sent to me, it's 31.
Yeah.
And I see it actually stayed fairly stagnant for a while. And then it sort of jumped up, I assume, once you started doing more intense link building. So can you walk us through sort of the timeline from like the link building perspective? I'm just curious because I have that graph right in front of me right now.
Yeah. So basically from the beginning, it was because it was already getting some traffic as well from paid ads and all the rest of it. But we basically started at from 5 to 10 backlinks a month. So doing a mix between guest posts and niche edits. And that's basically what we started at per month. And then that stayed pretty consistent throughout the whole campaign. 10 backlinks minimum per month is what we've been doing consistently. Now, there were some months where he wanted to double up. So we did that occasionally, like maybe a few times where we just doubled up the campaign. So doing double content, double link building. But for the most part, it averaged about 10 links a month.
So, and I don't know the answer to this, but with the domain rating, obviously domain rating, domain authority, any of the other metrics from an external SEO, I guess, tool set company or whatever you want to call it, like Ahrefs, like Moz, those are just metrics usually based on the links that they are able to detect. So do you know why it jumped, the domain rating specifically, kind of jumped in a quick way? Do you think it's a couple specific links that you got? Do you think it's the culmination of a lot of links over 6 months, and then all of a sudden Ahrefs is like, okay, there's a bunch of links. Now we recognize it. What do you think?
I think part of it is on the graph. It's a little bit deceiving because it started at 7, but we didn't start, like the site was still live for a bit. You know what I mean? Like if that makes sense. So it looks like it's a big jump, but we weren't actually working on it, doing a whole lot of link building. So, but when we started doing the link building, why I would say that, the domain rating went up is mostly just because of the quality of the links, right? It's based on the quality. So a lot of the things is like we're doing like the outreach to real websites that have traffic. We use traffic metrics. This one we're doing a mix between, I think it was minimum DR 20 or 25 for this site because it was just fine as a minimum metric for the outreach links. But on average, it's going to be closer to DR 50, 60 for the links that we're acquiring, we're building. But another big part of that is also like I mentioned, link quality. We also look at inbound to outbound link ratio when we're doing our link building from the referring domains. We think that's a big part of it. But again, DR is not a huge metric that we focus on. We're more so focused on like traffic, earnings. Those are the metrics that matter the most. But it's just interesting to kind of watch the progress, I guess, and kind of base you. But it's more of like a high level view, So we're more, like I said, we're more focused on earnings, traffic, rankings. That's what matters the most.
Right. It is easy. I'm obviously honing in on these metrics, and I often will tell people, hey, don't worry about that. You get yourself quality links. Things will work themselves out. Ahrefs will catch up or whatever. But I have seen some funny things just with those metrics. Maybe a sort of brand new site lands a pretty good link and they'll jump up with a very small number of links. So
Yeah.
it doesn't quite,
It's,
I mean, you could find exception cases all over the place. So
I think it's pretty easy to get to DR20, right? It's easy. Like you'll see big jumps up until DR20, then it slows down a little bit. Then you'll see once you get to DR like 30, then it's much harder. DR40, then it's just like, it's really hard. You won't see the same kind of jumps basically. So I'm not sure what the correct word is for that.
Yeah, the slope of the line there.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, I'm curious because I haven't worked. I'm not a big portfolio owner or anything like that. Kind of keep it minimal, but I'm curious. Have you taken a site from say, like a DR50 to like a DR70 or something like that? Like, do you know what it takes to do that?
No, me personally, I haven't. DR70 is pretty high. I haven't. The most I've like worked on or been a part of is like maybe DR60. And it's difficult. Those are big players, I guess. You know what I mean? Those are big players.
Yeah, kind of interesting. Again, it's metric, so there's a way to sort of manipulate that. If you know what the inputs are, then you could manipulate that. And I was going to say, I think Niche Site Project is like in the 60s somewhere, and I haven't intentionally done anything for a very long time. I did guest posting for a while, but just over time, like it just naturally moved up. So I have no idea either. I'm just curious if someone's like, hey, yeah, you need something like 80 DR 65 links and that'll get you to a 64. I wonder if it's that or if it like really matters on the URL rating, right? If it's the specific page that you are getting a link from, if that matters more. I have no idea. I'm sure someone can run the data and really figure it out.
Yeah, I think Ahrefs does like a breakdown of how it is, like how they base their DR and their DR rating. I think a large part of it also has to do with the inbound to outbound link ratio of the website you're getting links from. But again, you know what? I don't even want to get into that because I'm kind of talking out of my behind right now. I'm not 100% sure, so I won't get too much into that.
Well, that's fair. I have no
idea how they calculate
DR. Yeah. I mean, we're talking like hypothetical stuff anyway. We have no idea. So I think this is a good little spot. You do have some basically client spot opening. So if people do want to get, I think you have like 10 backlink or 10 guest post and niche edit packages available. And depending on when people are hearing this, you may have some openings. So I encourage people to check it out. I have been working with you and I'm impressed so far. So you don't have to sell yourself here, but I will tell people that I like what you're doing. So
I appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah, it is. And just to be, awesome.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say it's DR40 plus links. Actually, that's the one. That's what most clients are asking for. So that's kind of what I've been providing. It's a boutique agency that we're doing link building for, and the most standard package basically is 10 links a month. So, but because of what people want for the most part is DR40 plus. That's what I'm offering at this time, and we have a special price going on just for the listeners here on the Doug Show. So we'll we can talk about that a little bit later, the specifics on it, but.
Very cool. All right. So as we're, I guess, sort of pushing on here, so I'm going to jump back to content. I got excited about all the link building stuff. So let's jump back to content. How much content was on the site? How much did you add over the 18 months or so to give us a scope of how much work you and your team did?
Yeah. So when we started, it was very minimal content. Like I said, it was maybe 1 or 2 blog articles on there. And the rest of the content was basically on I don't know the exact word count, but most of the content that was on the site was on the category pages or collection pages, and then also the product pages. So we started as very minimal content. And then over the past 18 months, I mean, we've been doing we usually base it off of word count. So it's on average about 8,000 words per month. So not a whole lot, right? 8,000 words per month, 8 to 10. But now we're about 100 articles in the blog. So it adds up, right? And then of course, there were some months, like I mentioned, that where he wanted to double up content. Like this past month was another one where he wanted to double up content, put more down. So, yeah. Okay.
And then are you doing a lot of the writing, or I know you have
So we have a team of in-house writers, basically. So we do all that stuff in-house, which is a big part of our process because we have more control over the writing, right? We have our own team. They understand how to write SEO content, doing the small things. Like we have our own team of editors, right? They're doing the outlines. Everything is server optimized. And then also a big part of it too is like with the proper FAQ sections, NLP friendly. So we have a lot of control basically over the content, and we do the uploading, internal linking, the whole on-page process, keyword research, everything, which was a big part of the strategy as well as the keyword research. You can't overlook that, right?
Okay, and let's dig in deep to each one of these
Yeah.
areas. So keyword research, kind of the starting point. So what was your approach there?
Real quick, before we venture too far from backlinks, I just want to one thing that I just kind of want to touch on really quick because it's very important to me for the backlink strategy, which I think a lot of people overlook is and because I work with a lot of clients, right? And oftentimes clients that I work with, they just send me, it's a link order. They don't ask for my off-page strategy. They just put an order in for links. And a lot of times I'm looking at these link orders and they just suck, to be honest with you. I try to advise them, like I wouldn't do it this way, between anchor text, between like what links they're sending the page, what URLs they're targeting. It just sucks, right? So I would love to just talk a little bit more about that from the beginning. And then one of the reasons why I think this project was successful was because of the off page. Obviously, it was the full SEO, but a big part of it is the off page. So the off page strategy. So number one, so we're doing about on average 10 links a month, right? So one of the things that I often see people messing up on is not sending enough links to the homepage. So what I recommend is doing 30 to 50% links to the homepage on every campaign. So if you're doing 10 links every month, do 30 to 50% of the homepage. I think one of the most important things is not only is it going to help power up your whole site, but I think a lot of it is about making your site look as natural as possible. So, if you're an affiliate, if you're an e-commerce site, if you're whoever you are, most real websites are getting links to the homepage. So don't neglect that, and use majority branded anchors. We do a mix, but it's mostly between it's minimum like 30% branded anchor text with that, and then the occasional maybe 10% miscellaneous. So that's a big part. That's like on a high level. And then another thing that I often see people, what I think is a problem, right? I mean, this is just based on my own experience, is sending too many links to one page, especially like a money page. Like I know a lot of people, they want to push they're like, oh, I really, really love to rank this page. So they have a budget for say 3 or 5 links, and they send all 3 or 5 links to that one page. I think that's a waste. It's just based on my own experience. I think there's a bit of a filter with that. Like it doesn't necessarily push that page so much better. I think the better way to go about this and the way this long term was we went about 50% links to the homepage, and then the rest of the 50% was just sprinkled into each inner page, each article on the blog, basically. So we didn't try to rank one page more than the other by sending more links to it. Maybe one that we really wanted to push would send maybe one more over a period of time, but we wouldn't do like say 3 to 1 page in 1 month. We just sprinkled them around, and we did a mix between info articles, money content, where we have some roundup reviews and all that stuff on the blog. So that was a big part that I really want to stress for off page, which I see a big problem where a lot of people are doing, especially based on my experience with dealing with a lot of clients.
I agree 100%, especially with the homepage branded anchor text. I know. Well, I mean, we're often trying to rank specific pages for specific reasons, but getting that branded anchor text, it must send a really nice sign over to Google, or they're monitoring that. And I know if you go look at real actual websites, a lot of times they will have most of their links going to the homepage, branded anchor text, or like if it's an site project, for example, maybe it's my name, which would also, make sense because it's a personal brand, really. So when your potential clients do approach you and you just get the order, do you, take a closer look and say, hey, if you want some input, maybe you send some links to the homepage, or do you just take the order and run with it?
Man, I'm torn because I do all the off-page planning myself. Like so when a link comes in, it's not like I am the one that oversees everything. I manage everything. That's how I like to do it, especially at this stage, right? And I'm torn because sometimes I tell clients and they get mad. They're like insulted, like I've been doing SEO for so long and it works, or I get other things they say like, oh, well, my competitor is doing this and my competitor is doing that, and I just say like, okay, like, it's up to you ultimately, right? So now I try to advise and to say, hey, I recommend you do this. It's really up to you. That's it. And whether they want to take my recommendation or not, it's up to them. So I do try to tell them like, hey, look, this is what I recommend for you. I recommend sending more to the homepage or less to this page, or I recommend, or sometimes it's like they want 10 backlinks with like near exact match anchor text going to one specific page at one time. And I'm like, man, I don't recommend that, like switch it up a little bit.
So what sort of anchor text percentage would you sort of, and let's zoom out and say over the course of a year or so, and you're sending a reasonable number of links to a page and you're trying to rank it, what kind of anchor text do you want to have?
So I usually aim for, like on inner pages, for example, I usually aim for 60% target keywords, not exact match, but some variation of the target keyword, like some long tails. And I don't repeat the same anchor twice. But on most pages, we're not sending so many links to a specific page anyways. So say, for example, because we're not also a big part of the strategy is a big part of the strategy is we're trying to target the really low competition keywords in the beginning anyway. So they shouldn't need that many links to rank as well. So it's pretty rare that we have like a page we're trying to send like 10 backlinks to try to compete with like bigger guys, right? We're just going after the lower competition, but just because they're lower competition doesn't mean that they don't work. They don't convert, and they do work, they do make money. So it's based on ROI, right? So it makes sense. But the way that we generally do it is the first one is normally target keywords, like that we send for the anchor text. The first one is normally like a target keyword variation, like a long tail variation. And then we just kind of see how it goes. And then if it needs, say, for example, 3 links, like over time that we kind of assume, then I would usually do like long tail variation target keyword first, probably another long tail variation keyword second for anchor text, and then a miscellaneous. So click here, this page, this site, more info, guide, that kind of stuff. Or like maybe even a naked URL, but I don't use those so much, mostly just like a miscellaneous one.
Okay. So overall, conservative, and generally these are low competition keywords. So you don't need 80 links. You may need like 5 or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Or actually they can be really high competition, but it'll still rank anyways. I just ranked another client's site for super competitive keyword. It has over 110,000 searches per month. This is his main primary keyword on the blog, and it has 1 backlink. So it's just like if you're doing all the other things right, you're technical, your on page is good, everything else. And then I do think that you have to look at your site as a whole, not just one particular page, right? So I do think that sending the branded anchors to the homepage and mixing up your, like sending links to multiple pages, making sure everything is internally linked while doing your on page, like doing all the things, I think that's going to have a bigger effect. And it's just, you have a better chance of also getting lucky, like I don't want to say luck, but I mean, good things just have a tendency to happen when you're doing the correct steps. And that's kind of how I approach it. And then on a high level, you're going to have more traffic and better results, right? Instead of, that's how I look on things. I look on things more holistically, or try to anyways.
From an internal linking perspective, it sounds like probably the site was in roughly pretty good shape, just from like breadcrumbs and navigation and all that stuff, I think.
Yeah.
But you obviously added quite a bit of content. So how did you handle the internal linking, silos, clusters, any other buzzwords? What did you do?
Yeah. So from the beginning, so for example, this site, when we first got it, was a pretty low DR site. Now, when you're working on a e-commerce site, like the real main goal is ideally you want to try to rank your collection and your product pages. But with that, it's pretty difficult with a lower DR site. In my experience, if you send links to product and collection pages, it doesn't do anything. So to get those moving up, you want to make sure your site is set up correctly, and then just build the overall authority of the site, and those will have a tendency to go up, right? So so we kind of just ignored those, and that's why we focus more on the blog, because we know that we can rank the blog pretty easy. So that's where we added all the blog content. Now with the blog content, originally we tried to rank the collection. So we were doing a lot of our internal linking. Like, so we have kind of a mini silo, but it's more so based off of, it wasn't so strongly like laid out. It's just kind of using a little bit of experience and kind of common sense. Like if you're talking about a specific type of, basically if the link can fit in the context naturally, then we'll add internal links. And the more the merrier, as long as it doesn't appear spammy, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of has to make sense and look somewhat natural. So with the internal linking, we were trying to do like, the blog was linking to the blog basically within itself, but then also linking to specific categories or collections to try to help move those up. But it didn't work so well. So we ended up switching the focus a little bit just to kind of keep it within the blog, because the category pages weren't linking, and we were actually linking more on the blog for category pages, if that makes sense. We're actually starting to rank the blog content instead of category for those specific keywords. So we just kept it within the blog itself, the internal links. Hopefully that makes sense.
Well, and I'll ask follow-up questions too. So refresh
Yeah.
our memory, collections in the Shopify world mean what?
Collections categories are kind of interchangeable terms, but it's basically a collection of all your products. So
Okay.
think about like red sneakers, and you're going to have a collection full of all the red sneakers that you would have, all the red sneaker products that you would have.
Okay.
So
And
it's
you
one
found
step above a product page. Yeah.
perfect. So kind of like categories, and you found that wasn't working
Exact
too
same. Yeah.
well. And then you thought, hey, we'll just have these internal links from the blog posts to other blog posts that make sense.
Mostly. Yeah. Mostly.
Okay, cool. And we should have pointed this out before. So it is a Shopify e-commerce store, but essentially it doesn't matter, right? This could be any content site built on like
Yeah.
flat HTML. Like you're looking at this from the core of keyword research, content that's optimized, external links, internal links, all optimized, trying to rank in Google, right? So it doesn't matter at Shopify.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be easier if it was WordPress, but we're just like for a number of other reasons. Like if you have a blog heavy website, obviously WordPress is the way to go, in my opinion. But it was already on Shopify, and that's kind of what's the surprising thing about it is how well it was performing on the blog, especially considering a lot of people say Shopify sucks. But in terms of performance, it's in organic search, it's doing really well. So we're pretty impressed with that.
Very good. Okay, so anything else with sort of the internal linking strategy? For example, anchor text. I was trying to figure this out the other day. I know you can be more aggressive with your internal
Yeah.
anchor text, but I don't know how aggressive. So what were you doing on this site?
I do this on all my sites, client sites, everybody. I basically do like 100% target anchors for internal linking. Unless it's too difficult to like fit in naturally. Like for example, like we just have to, then we might just fit and like click here to see our best product or whatever. And we use click here as the anchor, but we're doing basically like 90 to 100% target keywords for the internal linking. And different variations though. So it's not an exact match. That's a big difference. We try to mix in different variations of it. Yeah. So basically like secondary keywords as well.
Okay, and that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to find this information, right? It's hard to get this data. I think probably the best way is to go look at a site and analyze their internal linking structure and figure out like what they
Yeah.
did and look at
Yeah.
existing data with results already. But yeah, I found no strict guidelines, but I thought you could be really aggressive. But I talked to someone just the other day and they said, I do like maybe 2 or 3 exact match and that's it. I don't overdo it. And I was like,
Mm.
that's basically what you would do with external links. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense to me. So
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. I'm going to be testing this out pretty soon with like very high percentage of internal links. So you have a roughly 100 blog post on the site. How many
Yeah.
links do you have going to sort of like the top 10% of the post that have the most internal links? So what's kind of the maximum internal links a page might have?
Man, I don't have those numbers in front because I don't deal with so much of the internal, like the editor does that, right? It's her responsibility to go in and deal with the internal linking. So to have I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would say it's between 5 to 10 pointing to that page if it fits, internal links pointing to the page. Is that the question? How many links are pointing to it?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So 5 to 10 or so, and
Yeah.
most of them are.
But again, it's going to depend on like how many articles. I mean, I don't want to set like a firm rule for people, like you have to have 10 internal links, so you have to have this, right? I think it's more so like if it fits, but again, that comes with your content strategy beforehand. Like you still are trying to keep your hubs pretty closely related, and if that's the case, then it's going to be pretty easy to add those internal links, And if you're doing like an affiliate site, if you're doing a lot of product reviews or something like this, and then you have your roundups, like that's an easy silo right there. You just have the review for the same, if you have a roundup review and it has 10 products and you have 5 of those products, you've done a review article on them and it's the same products, there's a good silo right there. So I would definitely make sure that those are all internally linked, like
Okay.
it's just based on the content itself.
Man, I just thought of a great, I'm not going to do this. So anyone who wants to do this analysis, Kyle, feel free to do this if you want to. Look at some larger site or a handful of larger sites and then look at their internal linking structure and review their anchor text, and all that data would be available. You could just run reports on Ahrefs and see what's going on with their internal linking structure. And you could come back with like actual data and say, hey, we saw this on these websites. It looks like if you aim in these ranges for percentages, anchor text, all that kind of stuff, the max number of links and some guidelines. I bet whoever publishes that, it'll be shared all over the place.
Yeah, so I've done it before. I've done it with the team that I used to work for. We actually analyzed like five really big authority affiliate sites. Now, I haven't checked in on them, but I'm pretty sure a lot of them have gone down. I know for sure like 2 or 3 of them have gone down significantly recently from the recent updates. So that's one of the things. But when we analyzed it, it was basically 100% internal linking. I mean, 100% target anchor text for the internal links. And it was like the whole method you could see was just like, excuse my language, like a shitload of internal links. Like they were internal linking like crazy. You know what I mean? Like it was like a lot. So, and there was no clear silos either. So that's one of the things that was noticed basically. And we kind of took that approach. Now I'm a little bit more conservative because I'd rather be safe than sorry. Like I said, those sites are not doing so well after the recent updates. I'm not saying it's because of their internal linking, but maybe that was part of it. I'm not exactly sure. So I try to, and also adding that many internal links and doing it properly is a lot of work, you know, like somebody's got to go through and do it. They have some plugins, like they have like Link Whisper, which is to help. But in my experience, it just wasn't as good as just doing it manually, especially because we're very, very, very selective on the anchor text that we're using, well, not only for on page, but also off page. So for our link building, we're very, very specific on the anchor text, but also for internal linking on page, we're very, very, very specific with the anchor text. Like it can't be, it's target keywords. You know what I mean? Not an exact match. We don't duplicate the same anchor text. If we do, it's not very often. It's close variations, but it's basically like secondary keywords. So, and for the most part, people are just too generic with their internal links a lot of times. And same with the plugins or whatever. That's been my experience. Maybe it's improved since then, but
I know Spencer's making a lot of improvements, and I think there's actually a Shopify plug-in version of Link Whisper available. But the problem, you pointed it out really well. So if I'm looking to do some specific anchor text with an internal link and I didn't use that anchor text very much because I didn't know that I was going to be targeting it, then I'm not going to find it anywhere. And I might have some suggested pages, but if I didn't plan ahead of time, which, I mean, actually on Niche Site Project, I didn't plan ahead of time. I was just talking about what I was doing. So there's a lot of sort of just random, misdirected anchor text that is fairly generic and is pointing all over the place. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So, okay, anything else with the internal linking structure?
No, I think that covers it. Yeah.
Okay.
We still try to do like a lot of internal links, but yeah.
Okay. Very good. And I was trying to remember what else. We go so deep, Kyle. I don't even remember what we were talking about before. So I think I was going to ask a little bit more about content. So we talked about some keywords, the content approach, how much sort of informational versus like product review style content. What's the breakdown there?
Basically 50%. 50-50, yeah. If anything, it's a little bit more affiliate style content, so maybe 60%, but we're trying to get it close to 50-50 mix between info and either roundup reviews or individual product brand reviews.
All right. Very good. And are you leaning towards more informational with some of the recent moves with Google to hit, product reviews a little harder?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think it's still great for relevance. And I still think it's not 100% of a waste. And if you can monetize it a bit, I mean, it's not going to be as profitable as like affiliate, for example, content, but I still think it's just a good thing to have that's just totally like it just makes me feel good. I just feel more comfortable. There's no data that I'm really using to back that up. I just think it makes things look more natural. And that seems to be the direction that Google's going, obviously, with the recent update and moving forward. Yeah.
You mentioned FAQs, which I've been talking more and more about. I've seen great success over the years, and still, it's becoming even more popular, I think, with services popping up. So, what's your approach for FAQs as far as, well, actually, the whole approach? I'll leave it open for you.
Yeah. So, one thing I'll say from the beginning for our keyword research and the whole strategy going into the site. So, one thing to keep in mind is this was a Shopify website, right? So and this is a Shopify website that was doing dropshipping, and the brands that they were doing dropshipping for are pretty well-known brands within the niche, right? You got to be within the niche to know the brands, but there is search traffic behind the brands, right? So the first strategy was to target those specific brands, obviously. So we've done this before with Shopify sites, where we do like brand review, then we just promote our products and just do it. We don't do it on Amazon, right? So we were limited in the beginning with the content that we were able to do, because it was all based on the brands that we already had on the site and the particular models that we had on the site. So then once those weren't converting, that's when we made the switch to Amazon. But and we can talk about that after. But to get back to the actual on page and the keyword research and all the rest of it, so it's the same thing we're mostly doing from the beginning. We're basically just we're making a list of all the low DR sites within the niche. So DR, I would say preferably under 10 is like super low. That's great. But DR 20 is still okay, I would say. But I really like to see it under DR 10. So we scrape all those sites. We just have a look at all their keywords. And then again, the filtering process is basically trying to find keywords that have, like, say, 3 under DR 10 on page 1. That's like a great sign that are targeting the keyword. And then we kind of make a list of those. And then if you can't find those, then under DR 15, under DR 20 is fine. But we're looking for basically 3 on page 1. And then we kind of like just scrape all those keywords and put together a list. And then we just start targeting the silos, I guess, or closely related ones to start and kind of see how those are performing and ranking. So that would be like the keyword research. And then for the actual content outlines and then the FAQ section, like you were mentioning. So starting with the primary keyword, then the content outline is just based on, we just want to make sure that we have like the most complete outline, so that we have the editor go through. He or she, depending, will go through, say, the top 3 to 5 pages, and they'll just scrape all the headings basically and just see what the other competitors are talking about. And we want to make sure that we include those, and then just kind of like rearrange them a little bit. And then that's where the editor comes in, the writer comes in, to make sure that it flows correctly. And it's still, it makes sense, obviously, right? So you got to use your judgment. And then on top of that, we take the primary keyword that we're targeting, we enter it into Google, then we use the people also ask section. So you can keep opening those sections up to get as many FAQs as possible. And you can either add those in an FAQ section, like the people also ask, or if it's good enough to make a subtopic, you can make a subtopic out of it. But most often we just make, we just do the FAQ section for that part. Now, one thing that I think a lot of people mess up on this is like they're taking too many FAQs that are not the primary keyword, if that makes sense. So say you were targeting the keyword like best red running shoes. In the FAQ section, you want to only have questions that are related to the best red running shoes. Don't add questions that are related to like shoes in general or outdoor climbing shoes, because that's going to be for another article. Keep it really specific so it still fits to the main like the primary keyword. And then if you can't find any more, then just don't add them. Sometimes you only have 1 FAQ or 2 FAQs, So that's generally how we do our approach. And then everything is like written in like a NLP friendly format, so it's very easy for search engines to answer. So it's like you're repeating the question back to it. So it's like, who is the fastest person in the world? And then that would be the question for the FAQ, for example. And the answer would be, what's his name? What's that runner's name? Anyways, John Dewell. Yeah, Usain Bolt. There we go. Yeah, okay. Thanks for saving me there. Usain Bolt is the fastest runner in the world. In 2019, he ran 100 meters in, 3.5 seconds, whatever it might be, So that's also very easy to for search engines to understand that it's easy for you to end up in the people also ask section, or at least getting that that snippet and stuff like this. Snippets are a little bit less now, but it still definitely helps for traffic overall.
Okay, so that was really good with like the overall picture of the content. Now you mentioned NLP. For the people that don't know what that is, can you break it down a little bit? What does it stand for starting off?
Yeah, natural language processing, I think is what it is, I believe. Which is like the term that we use. I don't know the actual specifics. The way that I understand it, like again, like Google this stuff, man. I'm not an expert. I'm not a super tech guy, but basically just like making sure it's just it's there's something to do with the algorithm. I don't know, but it's basically just it's the way that I understand it is it's like it's easy for search engines to understand, and the more detailed the better. Like clearly, like laying it out. And if you're talking about things like sizes or weight and stuff like this, like using alternative metrics really helps. It's like Google, because it's really easy for Google or search engines to like understand that kind of stuff. Like being very clear with your answer. So that's the way I explain it to my editors. That's how I understand it without being like too tech into it. You know what I mean? It just make it easy to understand and very clear. And yeah.
And it's it's one of those acronyms that meant something else before. It's like neural linguistic programming, which is like hypnotist and other kind of other shit like
Shout out to Tony Robbins, man, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's been around for a little while, and then now we're using it in a different context, and it means something different. We throw it around. I don't know what it means either. Whatever you said seems pretty accurate. Yeah. This seems fine. Natural language processing, is that what you said? Sure.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah. It's just
So
the writers know it. Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say we could dig up a link, but I mean, people just Google it if you want to go deeper in that.
Yeah.
I clearly know less than Kyle about it, and I mean, it's a thing that you can go deeper and you can dive in the deep end if you want to like really understand it. And there are tools that can help you understand this better and essentially like help you extract some of the information. Right? There's some tools out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what they are either. So,
most of the only on-page tool that we're using right now, though, is of course like Ahrefs for like the keyword research, but the primary one is Surfer SEO. So that's the one we rate all of our content with that. The bulk of it, I should say, anyways, unless it's such a low competition keyword that it has no because Surfer SEO is an on-page comparison tool. So it's just basically taking the top however many pages that you're selecting, and it's just comparing the data based on how many keywords are mentioned for the most part. That's like a simplistic view of it, right? So if you have no competitors to compare yourself to, then the tool is not really useful. But most keywords have competitors. So all of our on page is written with Surfer Content Editor.
Okay. Very good. So let's start moving into the monetization. Per the report that you sent me for April, the site made $1,893 in April of 2021. And then that's from Amazon. From your display ad network, $431. And that was just for half the month. So conceivably, this site would have made like $3,000 total from the work that you've done. And any details to add about monetization, either with Amazon or the ads that you are showing?
Yeah. So from the beginning, like I mentioned, we were trying to promote so we were still doing affiliate content in the beginning, but we just weren't promoting affiliate products. We were just promoting the products that were going to be drop shipped, basically. So we're promoting those and they just weren't converting that great. And we kind of had this idea like, okay, well, I know this content can convert with Amazon. That's kind of like what we were thinking. So we talked to the site owner and he was pretty like, he's pretty big into drop shipping. He likes the drop shipping model. And we talked to him and I don't think there was much resistance, but he said, because he's a pretty open guy. Okay, sure, let's try it. So we had already content that was ranking, but instead of promoting Amazon products at the time, it was just promoting the site products. And then we switched out all the links for Amazon links and just started promoting the Amazon products. And then that's when we started to see an increase we started like making some money from Amazon. So I think maybe the first month was like 3 or 4 months ago we did that. Maybe it made like a couple $100. Then maybe, so April it made 1,800, I guess, from Amazon. The month before that, I think maybe made half of that, like 700 or 800, 900, somewhere around there. But once we knew that Amazon was converting, then we started going just doing more like an Amazon, basically an Amazon affiliate site, just on the blog. So that's basically what we're doing now. And now all the content is promoting Amazon products, and it's like a standard affiliate site. If you were to look at the blog, it's done on Shopify, so the design is not the exact same, of course, but the same thing. Just like we have roundup reviews, we have product reviews, we have informational articles, and it's just the standard promotion, basically standard affiliate site.
And do you happen to know any sort of like the magnitude of how much the content that basically the affiliate content, how much was it working on the drop shipping side? Do you know if it was like selling a few things and then when you moved over to Amazon, it's like, 800% higher because it only sold like one or two products? Like how bad was it?
Yeah, it was a significant increase. Like I don't have the exact numbers to be honest, but it was not selling like hardly anything on the Shopify. I mean, yeah, on the dropshipping side of things, at least for those specific products that we were promoting. Like we had one of the best brands, and we had a review page. We were ranking like number one for the particular brand review and a bunch of other variations, and it wasn't selling like anything, So like it just wasn't converting. And I think probably the reason was because that product is on Amazon, and it was probably cheaper on Amazon. So it's like, you're not going to have great conversions when you're, people can just go to Amazon. That's one of the things with dropshipping, right? If you're doing dropshipping, especially high ticket, it tends to work better if you're selling products that are not sold on Amazon, because they would just go to Amazon. Most people trust Amazon. So for high ticket drop shipping, you try to avoid products that are heavily sold on Amazon or that are easily bought in a store near you, because then people would just go to the store and buy it themselves because they can look and see it. So that's when drop shipping has a tendency to work better, right? But yeah, these products are sold on Amazon quite easily. Like there's an abundance of them, and at a good price and all the rest of it. So it's just an easier sales process just to send them to Amazon.
With the display ads, are they shown on all the blog pages or just the informational posts?
Yeah, all the blog pages have the ads on them, and I still do that on my sites as well. We've tested that before in the past. I'm pretty sure it was a while ago, but we actually saw, I think, better conversions with ads on the money content as well. So we just put it across all pages. It's not too aggressive. The ads, there's the one like pop-up ad, which I just noticed like recently. I'm not a huge fan of that, but for the most part, it's like on the header, the footer, and maybe a couple like in content. And then there's the one pop-up ad. I don't know what you call it. So, but that's across the site, or across the blog, I should say.
I used to be really nervous about that. And I've seen kind of what you've mentioned where conversions really aren't impacted so much. I mean, I think ads have changed and how people deal with ads over the past 8 years or so when I've been doing this stuff. So, all right. And are there like video ads playing too? I know those are pretty popular now, or is it just display ads?
Just the standard display ads. Yeah.
Oh, would you look into videos? I don't know if they're available on your network or what's going on with that. I know I've heard those are really good.
I see them a lot. Yeah. I don't look into that stuff so much. I mean, if the ad manager or whatever tells me that they've had, good success with it, and then sure, I'll give them a try. Like I'm open to it. Right. But again, like I also monitor, like one of the things after we added ads, like if you end up sharing the screenshots, we actually saw a drop in traffic. So I think it's starting to recover now. So that's why May was kind of off to a little bit of a slower start, because we saw a little bit of a loss on rankings and then traffic because of it from adding the ads. And I think it was just from changing the site, and not necessarily because the user metrics didn't change, but I think it's just from making a minor shift to the site, and we just bounced around at the rankings a little bit. So if that didn't, now we're recovering and we're going back up to where we were before we installed the ads. But if that didn't recover, we notice a drop in earnings, then of course we wouldn't keep the ads up, right? So I would look at it the same thing with the video ads. If we add the video ads and we saw conversions go down, we're making less money overall, then I would just get rid of them. It's not worth it.
Sure. Okay.
So at the end of the day, I'm just focused on money, basically.
Yeah.
That's how I base performance. Either it makes more money or it doesn't. And if it doesn't make more money, then I don't care to do it. I'm not going to add it. Yeah. Try to be effective, really.
And that's the right way to look at it. I mean, you got to look at the numbers. You got to test stuff. Be willing to make some drastic changes occasionally. But I mean, everything looks good on my end, and I don't have an easy way to share the graphics, but I'll try to describe it verbally, especially for our podcast listeners. And yeah, it looks like for like a week or two, the traffic dropped a little bit, and then it sprang back up. Everything seems okay. Yeah. Did you make any changes, or did it came back naturally?
Just came back naturally.
Okay, that's interesting.
We're just continuing the same process. Basically, we're just continuing the same process, but it's coming back. So, and we're actually starting to move up with some other really big keywords as well. So hopefully, it's going to keep going up at the same rate. So, but based on the keywords that are starting to move up on page 2, page 1, page 2, it should continue to go up quite nice. I'm pretty excited for it.
Very cool. Anything else on the monetization angle?
No, that should be it. Pretty standard stuff. We're not doing it. We're not like reinventing the wheel. By any means. We're not doing anything crazy. Just following a process.
All right. Well, I think we covered most of the questions that I had in my head. I often forget things. So is there anything that I forgot, Kyle, that I should ask you?
I think that pretty much covers it for the most part. I think the biggest thing is just like consistency, like it's not like this didn't happen like overnight. As you know, it took like 18 months, right? But it was basically for the most part, it was a fresh domain, like had very little authority, didn't have really any work done to it. So it was basically starting from scratch. The domain was already been around for like a year or two, but in terms of actual like SEO work, it was pretty much fresh, right? But it was just about consistency, like traffic was going up a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, but just consistently, like we didn't like overthink the process too much, just have like a little bit of faith, just send the links, write the content, and just kind of just do that, right? There's nothing so crazy. And then the result of that is actually, like we talked about before, like competitive keywords. Now the site is ranking for like really competitive keywords, just by chance. Like it's not like we were even really necessarily going for them, but like very small, like for example, we're targeting like a 3-word, like say, it's basically getting a lot more like the short tail keywords, if that makes sense. So like, yeah, keywords that it shouldn't even really necessarily be ranking for. And we're a bit of an outlier when you look at the SERPs, like it's covered by high DR sites. We're DR 30, so it's not super low DR, but most of the DR in the sites is like on the SERPs is like 60, 70, 80, and then there we are ranking number 1, so I think it's just from the process overall and not looking at one specific page or one specific keyword, but just looking at everything like I mentioned before holistically. I think that's really the key there.
And it looks like the last 6 months is when there was more significant growth. So were the first 12 months, it was sort of very slow, very gradual growth. Am I reading this right?
Yeah, 100%. It's like an iceberg, like you feel like you're not doing anything. That's the hardest thing to kind of accept. You think it's going to be like big jumps when you first start doing SEO, but especially in the beginning parts of the campaign. And that's why client SEO is so difficult, because you have to try to like tell them like, look, just be patient. Luckily, I've done work with him before, so he already had like a lot of confidence in me and in the process. And actually, I know way more now. I'm much better SEO than I was then. So we're able to get better results, but just like, don't overthink it too much. I think a lot of times like you're working on it and a couple months go by and then you freak out and you think you have to change everything. You start over analyzing everything. Like, well, maybe I should change this title to this. And maybe my anchor text ratio has got to change on my internal links. And maybe it's 75% is better than 80% and all this stuff. It's like, no, just give it some time, let it age. Build more backlinks, high quality backlinks, write more high quality content. When I say high quality, I mean, you don't have to get like a PhD to write your content, but just SEO optimized, good quality content. And that's going to take care of the bulk of the work. And you should still see some good success. Obviously, the smaller the detail, you might get better results, but it's not to say you're not going to get good results if you just do those things. The results are still good. They're still sufficient.
This is awesome, Kyle. It's always good to catch up with you. Where can people find you if they want to work with you or learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so I would just say, just message me directly just go to my website, claver.digital. I mean, Doug will have a link in the show notes in the description below, but just jump on the site. There's some pricing. It's a basic website, just a landing page for the most part. Just enter in the chat and then you can reach out to me directly, ask me any kind of question or whatever, or if you have a website that you need help with. Like Doug mentioned before, we're mostly doing link building. I do have like I said, some small in-house team of writers, so we can do like full SEO content plan strategy, and then along with the link building. But the main business that I'm doing right now is link building. That's what we've been seeing the best success with. So that's just hit me up basically.
All right. Yep. We'll have all the links for you and everything. Thanks a lot, Kyle. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for having me. Cheers.